To go back to Ellen's memo of 2 out of 3, the next thing she talked about, is a letter that she had gotten from Attorney Hollister that actually went to the town, and the town assessor took on the responsibility of apparently, town assessor took on the responsibility of discussing with somebody a legal matter, an Attorney Hollister, on rainbow housing, which according to Ellen, the fact he didn't tell the town attorney or anybody else exposed the town to some liability. So she said, if you're going to do that again, I mean, you got to give it to the town attorney. You're an assessor, not a lawyer. Then she goes on to the next paragraph where she talks about being contacted by 2 companies in Connecticut with regard to motor vehicles. And if you bear with me 1 minute again. Do you have that page?
I'm looking for this one here.
Page 2.
Oh, no, page 2 of hers?
That's page 3, yeah, I'm over page 2.
I got it. Here.
Thank you. Okay, I got it.
Oh.
Okay, so down at the next paragraph, she talks about she was contacted by 2 companies regarding his letter about motor vehicles. And in the letter about motor vehicles, want to get a copy of it? Yeah, thanks, if you hold that up. So what happened is, Todd had sent out a letter to people in February of 2022, where he said he had been notified by the motor vehicle department that there has been a recent transfer on a vehicle, and that so he wanted them to report everything and fill out this form, and also give you a copy of your bill of sale. The problem, of course, is that never happened. He never got anything from the motor vehicle department. He made it up in order to get information from people. And this is the letter that he put in his documents, which the town has, and we get a copy of. And it's addressed to somebody, but it talks about a motor vehicle. It's a 1995 or 96. So a lot of people were getting these letters that were bogus. And then what they did is they apparently complained to the town manager, who said that that after she had gotten them, that here's her words now, that representatives were confused by the wording of the letter, since many of the commercial vehicles had been duly registered for years. The one company reported that you told them failure to report would result in you making the assessment of what the body type was, and that you would choose the higher value. Another expressed concern about the impact this recent and hopefully temporary surge in used cars is going to have on people. So that being done, when we did our hearings, you can see this in the bottom half here, that's from our report in May of 2022, after hearing the same thing from a bunch of people. That, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. That we actually commented to everybody saying that one of the tax assessor's more disturbing methods used to obtain information from personal property owners was a false assertion that the state motor vehicle department had notified our office you recently registered a below motor vehicle in Enfield. So in effect, the state notice was a concoction. It never happened, and that we thought he used this as a predicate to launch an inquisition against scores of unsuspecting businesses and property owners regarding the hundreds of motor vehicles for information they did not otherwise they wouldn't have had to obligated to dig up and turn over to the tax assessor. His methods were described by some as devious and deceitful. Now remember, everybody that we see before us, we swear them in. They're all sworn in, so they're telling us, this under oath. And that one complained he thought his identity had been stolen. Several thought it was mail fraud. And so we notified the town council and the manager and so on about this in our report. Then the next part of, if you look at the top part of this, it talks about equitable estoppel, and what had happened is some people had open spaces like Grassmere has of a water company where they have their wells. Open spaces have been granted to these people for, in some cases, 50 years or more, 5 or 6 assessors previously. And so the town now seemed to be adopting a position that we don't have a formal open space policy that's been accepted yet, so therefore we're knocking everybody out. And we looked at that and said, well, we're familiar with what's called an exception to the doctrine of equitable estoppel, which basically means that open space and property owners that were induced by the town, including former and current assessors, and reasonably relying on past representations that now threatens to subject them to substantial loss if the town goes through its tax assessor's office and they're permitted to negate the acts of former or current agents, especially without substantive or procedural due process. We thought it's wrong, and also it subjects the town to tremendous liability. So we restored open space to Grassmere, Haswell Water Company, and so on. And that's some of the ones that he then revised and took away, and then some of them came back to us. But anyway, that's one of the other parts of our decision that we made. And then the next thing that is in Ellen's report is she talked about inspections on farms, and she has that somewhere in here, but she talks about the inspections but kind of poo-poos it a little. And remember what we had heard from some of the other people previously in other testimony, like Connecticut Mulch, where he just showed up, Jarmach, Antonacci, Delorge, Kogut, Longi. And I want to read you what Maury Longi's situation was. But everybody I just mentioned, he had showed up at their property, no announcement, no permission, no nothing, just they caught him roaming around and asked him what is he doing there. They don't know who he is. And then here's essentially what he did to Lori. So she forwarded this document, which is page 32, to Mario in an email so that he would know what's going on with this depreciation and some other issues that he didn't cover during her interview. But here goes on just this part about the inspection. Mario, when you asked me the question prior about being on the BAA, if I had any interaction with Todd, I answered you thinking prior to me on BAA 5 years ago, and answered regarding Bloomfield for my first encounter. But actually my first encounter, now that I think about it, was my own home and farm. One Friday afternoon about 3:30, Todd showed up in the backyard of my property. I remember the day well because I was playing with my grandson. At the time, he was around age 2.5. My property is and has always been posted no trespassing for years. Todd started walking up to me while we were at the playground area, and I said words to the effect, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Well, I'm the tax assessor. I'm here to inspect your farm." Then he said, "Do you file a Schedule F on your personal return?" I said, "We file for the farm, but we're also a corporation." And he wanted me to go in and get a copy of my tax return. I said, "I don't have my information here. I'm outside with my grandson, but any request, put it in writing and send it to me." At that point, my husband had come around from where he had been working on the farm, and he saw this strange guy in our backyard with me and my grandson. I said, "He's the assessor and he wants to look at the farm." So David pointed over to the greenhouses, over to the back field, and he said, "You just cut down the hay." So they walked over to the field, and on the way back, Todd said to me, "I'm knocking out all the farms in Enfield, and so if there are 100 farms and 50 appeal, then I'm still ahead. I'm knocking out the goat farmer down the street." And Lori said, "I don't know of any goat farmer down the street, and I've lived here my whole life." I said, do you know I sit on the BAA? I'm Lori Longy. He then walked up to his car, got in, and left. That was the first interaction with Todd. So, and with the BAA, yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I was waiting.
Yeah. Okay, so another part of our report, just at the end, this is where we commented about a disturbing activity or tactic was the manner in which the tax assessor conducted farms, real estate inspections. As a general practice, he just appears, no prior notice or request for permission, begins roaming around until he's detected by the owner, and then once confronted, demands immediate access to inspect real estate. It matters not whether the property is posted, fenced, gated, nor did it matter whether his timing was inconvenient for the property owner. As justification, he'd say, well, I'm the tax assessor and I'm here to inspect the property. So we said this is not merely a matter of being impolite, rude, thoughtless, or inconsiderate. It's much more than that. The tax assessor's unannounced appearances many times placed him in the status of a trespasser, and these tactics created situations ripe for conflict, confusion, and confrontation. So with that, that takes care of, I think, page 2 of her memo. Okay. Now, pardon me for 1 minute. Thank you.